in this extract, there is an attempt to show the narrator's changing motion. So this is what I meant when I said they give you this statement, and this is what normally confuses the students. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved, right? Support your views with detailed reference to the text. Yeah, it's just, it doesn't tell you what you're supposed to do. That's the problem. But they are expecting you to analyze, right? And it's the same thing for AQ and all the other ones as well. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got like a main quote for our analysis. So remember, your quote is going to be, this is your anchor for the analysis, right? So the first thing I've got to make sure I do is I need to make sure that I choose a quote that I can definitely analyze with. So last week we were looking at an actual exam answer, right? And we'll look at like how to actually improve that. So we'll go over that today. I've got a lot of news for you guys, right? So let's quickly go over that. I just want to double check because we have got a lot of new students, right? What I just want to quickly double check is a couple of things. Is everybody needs to know where their links are, please, guys. Oh yeah, we'll go over new class starting next week. Can you guys just confirm your links for your lesson? Where'd you get those? Let's just confirm. Everybody just put a response in the chat. Yeah, from Telegram, exactly, correct. Yeah, important links section, right? So in Telegram, everything that you guys need to know about your links is here, right? So you just go to your Telegram, important links, and all your links and timings, everything's there. Everything is there. All right. So just make sure, guys, that you know where your links are and stuff like that. So it's easily accessible for you. Yeah. And in terms, if you're still not 100% sure about your schedules and stuff, just check here. It's all here, right? So this literally tells you, for example, for strategy, you have to book that in, right? It's only Monday and Tuesday, right? So just make sure that when you click on it, sometimes what happens, I get a message from students saying there's no, so say like there's no strategy session for this week. It means that it's fully booked. That's all. If it's not appearing on there, it just means it's fully booked. So just try and make sure you book it as soon as possible. Do it now. Book it now. You can book it for the next week or the week after. Just do it ASAP. And then these other two, just obviously click on them. Next week, we've got a new class opening on Thursday. Megan, I think, has been sending messages to you guys. So if anybody does want to move to Thursday, you can, no problemo. Obviously, what you don't want is everybody trying to move to it, because we have to obviously limit the numbers for each group. So if you do need to move to Thursdays, please message Megan in your Telegram. Just tag her and then just say I need to change to Thursday. So that's fine. It'll be Thursday 5:30, by the way, 5:30 to 7:30. Thursday will be Mr. Hakim. Okay, next thing, updates on the website. Okay, my brain is nearly exploding with all the stuff that we're trying to do. Okay, cool. I got good news and bad news. Okay, the good news is I have finished all of the training for the new AI for all of the exam boards for language paper 1. So that's the good news. So by the time today's lesson starts at 4 p.m., it will be uploaded. And then, so let me just quickly show you. Yeah. So I've been working on a few different things. So a few different aspects, right? The first thing is I felt like the styling is really old. So you guys will probably see as you go through it, I'm trying to update everything. I've kind of settled on a color pattern, right? I chose these colors years ago. By the way, even the colors mean something, right? They're symbolic. So actually, you know what? I tell you what, right? What do you reckon? Right. So as I was saying, the colors even mean something. I don't know if you guys realize that, right? So they are actually symbolic. Do you guys know why I chose purple, for example, and green? So I chose purple, green, and blue. Anybody know why? They are symbolic. Yeah, purple is royal. Well done. It's royal. Purple is royal. It's the color of royalty. I'm trying to give you guys the impression that it's high quality. You know what I mean? Well, green actually apparently psychologically symbolizes success. Apparently, so money, yes, but it's like, what does that symbolize? It means success, basically, And then blue is calming, yeah. Exactly right. So I'm just trying to update all the styling stuff. So that's one aspect of it. So I've gone through that. And then the other thing as well is I have updated some of the structures. I've made a new video for you guys. So you'll see in Unit 2, Lesson 2, there is a new video there as well. And I've updated all of this stuff. Now, okay, let's quickly talk about, oh yeah, and I was just going to say that when you get to Lesson 4 will be where you get to use the assessment tool, right? Okay, it's very, very complicated the way I had to do it, because what I'm attempting to do because we got access to GPT-5, yeah? GPT-5 works very differently from the previous GPTs. It's very different. It's got a much bigger context window. It's a lot smarter. It uses something called reasoning as well, which means we don't have to do things in bits anymore like how we had to do in the past. We can actually just have it in one go, but it creates a lot of other complications, which I've had to like do a lot of research over the weekend, fine tune it, but it's ready. All right, it is ready. The only downside is I haven't been able to update the videos just yet. I'm going to try and record them tomorrow morning. I wanted to do them today. I just didn't have time, unfortunately, but I'll try and do them tomorrow. So let me just quickly run you through, okay? Here. So I think I've updated the images. Let me just check quickly. Yeah. So I've updated the images, right? So you could potentially follow the images. The videos in there at the moment are basically the same. The only thing is it's still got the videos of when we had the old profile on the website. So what you had to do is you had to go into it and then edit the profile, but you don't have to do that anymore. So basically, when you copy this workbook, you go to Telegram and then you should have your tracker. Those of you with us before, please transfer it from, it doesn't really matter, I guess. But if you can transfer it from Google Sheets and just copy the link and just put it here. But you should have your link for your tracker here, right? That's what you did in grade 9 core skills. Unit 2, lesson 3, the instructions are in there. Grade 9 core skills, unit 2, lesson 3. If you haven't done it, it will take you 5 minutes. Just do it after this. It's fine. All right. So anyway, you just go into here, just click on it, open it. And then basically all you do is like, you just find the appropriate place, right? So for example, if I'm doing language, now I named it a bit complicated, right? So here I call it language fiction. And that's because like, AQA, EDUCAS, and edXL paper 1 are fiction. OCR and edXL IGCSE are non-fiction for paper 1. So I couldn't just say paper 1, although now I'm just thinking I should have just said paper 1. Anyway, whatever. When I say language fiction, I just mean language paper 1. So you just find the row and you just put the link there, right? So you see link for workbook. That's all you do. You literally just paste it there. Boom. And that's literally all it is. It's just, but we just basically need you to make sure that you've put it somewhere where we can locate it easily. And just make sure that whatever documents you guys share with us, you click share at the top. Whatever links you give us, just go to the top, click share. Make sure that you've shared it with help@sophicly.com. Yeah, just make sure you shared it with us, because even if you give us the link, we won't be able to view it if you don't share it with us. All right. So that's basically what it is. So that's that. So just make sure you do that. I need to make the new videos for that. I will do them. All right. The second lesson is why authors write. So there's a video. Took me a while to make it. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's about why authors write. Do you guys know why why did I even bother making that video? Why do you guys think? What do you guys reckon? What's the reason behind it? Anybody know? Yeah, for author's purpose. Why is it important that you guys try and talk about author's purpose? How does it help you with your results, with your grades? Yeah, for ideas, good. Try and explain a bit more. Yeah. So we're going to be looking at AO4 today, which is basically AO4 is evaluation. This question catches a lot of students out, but it's totally unnecessary, right? So we're going to be looking at AO4. Now, I think, so AO4 is the evaluation question, right? I think Arena and Mesa, I think you're the only ones who don't actually have you have AO4 in edXL IGCSE, but it's a different AO4. Your AO4 in edXL IGCSE is the same as all the others AO5, which is where they basically say that they want to see inventive use of like structural features, sustained crafting of linguistic devices. It's actually for AO5. Yeah, you have AO5, but your AO5 is different as well. But it doesn't really matter what they name it. It's more about the skills. So, for example, the skills are the same, Aisha. I'll just show you quickly, right? So if we have a look. So, because try to remember, guys, with me, I don't think of it in terms of the question. I think of it in terms of the skill. Because you guys have to try to think of it this way, right? Each question is actually just assessing a particular skill. That's all it's doing. So the question itself is not as important as your understanding of what skill I'm actually being assessed on. Does it make sense? Right? So like, let's say, for example, every exam board has to do AO4. Well, actually, every exam board has to do AO1, AO2, AO3, AO4, AO5, and AO6, apart from EdXL, IGCSE. They just don't have that AO4, which is evaluation. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even one slight bit, because all evaluation is, it's just analysis. That's all it is. It's nothing special. It's a little bit of a trick to say you have to evaluate and all this kind of stuff. They just want to see you analyze, guys. That's it. That's all they want to do. The only difference is they're going to give you like a statement, and you have to just think of that statement and keep it in mind and know the key words, and make sure that when you're analyzing, you keep referring back to it. That's basically all it is. And because anyway, so look here, for example. Now, this is one thing I have to say. One thing I have to say about like EdXL, man. I don't like the way that they word things. Like it, because this is very confusing. Like if you see here, right, and Aisha, you asked, are they the same? The difference between AQA and EdXL for the evaluation questions is AQA awards 20 marks, whereas EdXL awards 15, and that's literally all the difference is. It's just the number of marks that are available, you know. Anyway, so if you have a look here, right, so they're saying at the top level, and let's just have a look at the yeah. So it says, evaluate text critically and support this with appropriate textual references. It's like, what does it even mean? Right. Anyway, so it says evaluation of ideas, events, themes, or settings. There's a sustained and detached critical overview and judgment about the text. The selection of references is apt and discriminating and is persuasive in clarifying the points being made. What they're not telling you is that you still got to analyze. That's the crazy thing about it. You still have to analyze the author's techniques. And you still got to be perceptive. You still got to be detailed. It's just the same as everything else. Like, it literally is no difference, to be honest with you. The reason why they call it an evaluation is just because they give you a statement, that's all. And it's like you have to just analyze against the statement. And that's literally all the difference is. Okay. We're going to move on to that very, very soon. I just want to just quickly point out to you. Right. Okay. Oh, but it depends, Aisha, because I have no idea how that works for Spanish. I do think, I don't know, it's hard for me to say which one's easy and which not, if I'm completely honest with you. For literature, definitely, in my opinion, AQA is the best. Sorry, guys, the rest of you are not doing AQA. Definitely, I think AQA is the best for literature. For language, I think it comes down to preference, to be honest with you. I don't really see too much of a difference between all of them. Anyway, so guys, look, lesson 3 now. I have to make sure this is updated after the session, right? So lesson 3 is where you start the diagnostic, all right? It's where you start the diagnostic, right? So you see here, it says language paper on diagnostic assessment start, right? Again, these videos are old. They'll still do the job more or less, but I need to update them. Anyway, here, what I want you to do is before you actually start your diagnostic, right? I want you to actually submit this form. Because what it's going to do, it's going to send you and your parents a notification that you have started, and we want you to spend a maximum of 1 week on the diagnostic. All right. I don't really, at this point, I'm not bothered about timing. I'm not bothered like that you have to do it under time conditions. I'm not worried about that. What I want is, I want to see your best possible writing. If you have to take a week for that, just take a week. Yeah, just give me your best. But you have to understand about diagnostic is the point of it is to give yourself a chance to produce what you can with no help, with no assistance, your raw best writing that you know of, right? And the other point is that you've also gone through certain things. You've gone through the mark scheme. You've learned a few little techniques like the TTECEA structure and all that kind of stuff. This is your opportunity to try and do it to the best of your abilities by yourself to see where you stand right now, right? That's what a diagnostic is, right? And you do your absolute best. We went through the mark scheme. You've learned the TTECEA. Now you just try and see how well you can do that stuff, right? So when you submit this, it's basically going to ask you, what's your exam board, blah, blah, blah. And you just submit it, but you don't mark the lesson complete until you've completed the entire diagnostic. Okay, until you've completed it. Oh, who can say what TTECEA stands for, please? Who can do it? Who can say what TTECEA stands for? Don't worry, guys. Every one of you will learn it. Yeah. Topic, sentence, technical terms, very good. Yes, evidence, good. Close analysis. What's after effects on the reader, very good. And author's purpose. Why should you guys use TTECEA? What's the purpose of it? Very good, Mesa. Excellent. Lovely, good. Yeah, exactly, right? So what you think of with techie is it's like your base structure to answer any analytical question. It's like your pillar that you can always rely on no matter what. Now technically, I'll tell you something. Yeah, technically, you don't even have to write a proper essay. Let's say for literature, you don't even have to technically write an argument, right? You could actually just write a whole bunch of techie paragraphs and score grade 9. You could potentially do that. I just want to teach you that because that's not going to help you in the future. Just being able to write techie paragraphs, you actually need to learn how to develop an argument. So it's a bit idealistic, you can say, but I don't want a situation where you guys get into A level and you're ringing me up and saying, can you teach me how to write an essay? Because all I learned was paragraphs, which is what a lot of people do. They just learn paragraphs, but they don't actually learn how to argue. But technically, you could score every single mark you need to with just techie paragraphs. You could do that, right? So that's why we teach it to you. It's like the base thing that if you just master that, like there really shouldn't be anybody scoring less than grade 7, if I'm honest with you. It really shouldn't be. It's a paragraph structure, Aisha. It's a paragraph structure. You don't worry. You will learn it as you go along. You will learn it. All right, guarantee, inshallah. Okay, but yeah, you'll get more. We'll go over it today. Inshallah. Okay. So anyway, when you submit this, it's gonna just register that you start. It's gonna send your parents an email and you an email, and every couple of days it'll send you an email to say, hey, have you finished it? You've got a few more days left. You've got a few more days left, and it gives you a week, right? Anyway, cool. When you get to lesson 4. This is where you'll see the new. This will delve into the nuances of language choices assessment tool, right? So remember, when you do the diagnostic, the whole point is you do it by yourself. It's a chance for you to test yourself. Okay, it's very, very important that you do test yourself. But one of the mistakes that a lot of students make is they think everything has to be a test. Not everything has to be a test, right? Not everything. Sometimes you need to test yourself, and sometimes you need to see how an answer is actually written. So one of the things that's taken me some time to get this thing right is this AI that we've got, yeah? Nothing else like it exists in the UK. I'm very proud to say nothing else exists like it in the UK. It's not ChatGPT, it's not all of this stuff, right? It is aligned with educational research. So, for example, when you do your feedback, it's not just going to give you feedback. It's not just going to say, yeah, you scored here, you scored there, blah, blah. It's not going to do that. It's going to ask you, what was your target? What did you try and achieve? How did you address this? How did you address that? It's going to ask you a series of questions. And it's going to get you to think about how well you actually addressed all of that stuff. And then once you've answered all the questions, it will then give you what its feedback based on the mark scheme and also based on our teaching style and educational research as well. So when you get the feedback, there's actually going to be a whole bunch of things. It's going to be your own reflections. It's going to be your total marks. It's going to give you a grade per paragraph, by the way, and then a total grade at the end, right? It's going to rewrite your paragraph and say, you could have done it this way. And then it's going to give you an ideal paragraph and say, here's another way we could have answered this, right? And so by the end, you're going to have a lot of feedback, right? You can have a lot of feedback, and it's supposed to be metacognitive, right? It's meant to make you think. And then remember that before you even move on, you have to assess all of them, right? And you will then speak to one of us, either the tutor in your session or myself. And before we give you any feedback or tell you anything, you need to be able to explain to us, where did you gain marks? Where did you lose marks against the mark scheme? How are you going to improve on it next time, right? Because remember that the thing is that we already know how the mark scheme works. Like sometimes I can literally just scan somebody's writing and go, oh, you missed this, you missed this, you missed this, you missed this. Because I've done it for 10 years. But it's you guys that needs to learn that, right? So before we give you feedback, you're going to tell us how you think you did and how you address the mark scheme and all this kind of stuff, right? And then what you'll do is that when you go onto the redraft, it'll actually be the exact same AI tool. Extend the plan into full answer, all right? And then you'll assess it again, and then you submit it. And once you've done all of that, you'll mark the unit complete, and then you'll move on to something else. Does it make sense? All right. So the units are designed like this. At the beginning, you will test yourself, right? And then after that, you're going to do something called modeling, right? And it's like a guided modeling type of thing. And it means that like when you're doing that, you are getting some assistance, obviously, but it's not just giving you an answer. It's making you think of, how can I extend my own thinking and use resources? What I'm trying to say is this: don't be afraid, guys. Like, don't be afraid to use sources and resources to help you to build your thinking. one of my friends, sorry guys, one of my friends, yeah, she posted on Facebook. She's an A-level literature teacher. She's an examiner as well. She went to Cambridge, got a very posh accent, very posh. She's very nice girl, yeah. Anyway, so she posted something on Facebook the other day, and she was saying, ChatGPT is really bad and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, it is bad. It's bad because people don't know how to use it properly. It's bad when you do it with no educational research principles in mind. Because the point is this, right? Whatever you do, you're supposed to be stretching your thinking. So whatever technique you use that stretches that thinking is going to benefit you cognitively, right? It's going to benefit your brain power, right? So obviously what's happening with most people is they don't know education. Even a lot of teachers don't even read it. They don't even read educational research. A lot of teachers, they don't. I had a parent once, yeah, and her daughter was in our program, and her daughter, she's a teacher, yeah. It was so funny about her because we didn't teach the way that she teaches. She thought that we were wrong, and I said, the thing is, I know that you guys don't read the research, and she goes, you can't say that. Teachers work very hard, and I said, yeah, I know they work hard because I work hard as well. I know that, but I know that teachers don't read it because you guys don't have time to read it, right? So my friend, she posted on, and she's like, yeah, ChatGPT is really bad. But of course, if all you're doing is just asking for answers all the time, of course you're not going to learn anything because you're not thinking, right? But if we say to it, well, you can't give answers, you can only ask questions and get them to think, and you can give examples so that maybe they can integrate that into their thinking. And if we actually base that off of educational research to stretch our thinking, then yeah, it is going to work. It is going to work. And we've got the proof to show it, with students. We've literally, like, it's normal in our program that students jump 3-4 grades. It's normal. It's like before we were like, oh my God, you jumped 4 grades. Now it's like, okay, loads of students do it. And all of you, and you guys are going to be able to do the same thing. Anyway, look, let's move on. So here's what I do, yeah? Like when a student comes to me and says to me, can you have a look at my work and all that kind of stuff, right? So remember, the first thing that you guys got to do is try and give your part, right? So what do you think actually worked and what didn't? Okay. But another thing that I do is I just quickly check, have you followed as a base, have you followed the techie structure? That's like the first thing that I do. I just check that quickly, right? So let's just quickly go through it and just see, because the techie structure is going to help you score the top marks in every single analytical question, including the comparisons. Right? So anything that just requires you to analyze language or structure, even your comparisons, it is still techie. It's just you got to talk about two at the same time, right? Same thing for this one. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, right? So let's just read through this. We kind of read through it last week a little bit, but I'll just go through it again, right? So it says Bolton uses the event of Bobby's departure to effectively present the negative emotions of the narrator. She explains how does a loving act, kissing him but with many fears, this is undoubtedly strong as the juxtaposing acts highlights the start of a buildup of emotional turmoil within the narrator. This is successful for the reader to get a peek into the changing emotions of the narrator. Okay, cool, right. So remember here, what happens is that this particular question here, for example, is out of 15, but the student only scored 8, right? So we dropped nearly 50% of the marks in this question, right? So first thing about the topic sentence, Bolton uses the event of Bobby's departure to effectively present the negative emotions of the narrator. I suppose it's not too bad, because what's the actual question here? It's like, in this extract, there is an attempt to show the narrator's changing emotions. So this is what I meant when I said they give you this statement, and this is what normally confuses the students. Evaluate how successfully this is achieved, right? Support your views with detailed reference to the text. Yeah, it doesn't tell you what you're supposed to do. That's the problem. But they are expecting you to analyze, right? And it's the same thing for AQ and all the other ones as well. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that we've got like a main quote for our analysis. So remember, your quote is going to be, this is your anchor for the analysis, right? So the first thing I've got to make sure I do is I need to make sure that I choose a quote that I can definitely analyze with. Okay, so sorry, my brain is all over the place. Not that you can analyze with, but that I can do all of this stuff with, right? I can write a topic sentence. I can explore the technical terms. I can explore close analysis. I can talk about the effects and the author's purpose. So the problem with it is that it is quite short on time. That puts you under pressure, right? So this is what we normally advise the students to do is when you're reading through the extracts, just try your best to get a feel for the writing. Think about the effects, how it makes you feel emotionally, because you're going to have to talk about that in terms of the effects. Any sort of like techniques and stuff you spot, just underline them as you go along. Just make notes of these things, right? You may need to read it a second time. You've got time to do that. What I'm trying to say is it is worth taking a little bit of time, just a little bit, just to find a quote that you can actually talk about. And remember, you've got to talk about all of these things here, right? Now, when it comes to language, the thing about language is this, right? Is that you always gain marks for this, right? So you always gain marks for being perceptive, okay? You always gain marks for being detailed. And that is on top of these things here, right? When we say perceptive, what I mean by that, I believe the word, its roots, it comes from a Latin word or something like that, which means to see beyond. So it means like to see through something, right? So it's like when you can see more. So for example, just giving inferences, right? In literature, they specify that they want you to write a conceptual analysis, and you can do the same thing here, okay? Conceptual, all right? So conceptual just means I'm exploring ideas. Because guys, remember, especially those of you who did the creative writing, right? We went through so many ideas, didn't we? We looked at like themes and why authors write and why you want to write and why this thing's important and what it means and why your character's doing this and blah, blah, blah. It's just like, why? What's the idea behind it? What am I trying to get the reader to understand? With these authors, exactly the same thing. And you want to try and tap into that wherever possible. So here's the thing, right? My advice is when you write the topic sentence, try your best to just introduce the idea behind the right. Avoid at all costs trying to describe what they're saying, but instead focus on the idea, right? So if you have a look here, actually it's not too bad, to be honest with you, right? Present the negative emotions of the narrator, right? I think last week we tried to just make it a little bit deeper, right? It's not too bad, but as soon as you have like adjectives, it becomes a description. But that does depend on how you actually explain the rest of the concept, right? So for example, here, we're saying one of the techniques Bolton seems to utilize, and I'll give you this at the end, in this part of the text, is to explore the conflicting emotions of the narrator, thus exposing the tension between positivity and negativity, right? Because remember, the question is evaluate how successfully this is achieved, the changing emotions, right? But we don't have to say I agree or disagree. I don't have to say that. I can say, well, I sometimes agree, sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I don't even have to say it explicitly. I can just make sure that my analysis explains that, right? So again, you're not going to get marks just because you say, well, I agree or disagree. You're not going to get any marks for that. You're going to get yeah, we're going to look at that now. You're going to get marks for the quality of the analysis behind your perception or whatever, right? Okay. So if you have a look at this one, right, we said one of the techniques Bolton seems to utilize in this part of the text is to explore the conflicting emotions of the narrator. I could have potentially left it there, thus exposing the tension between positivity and negativity. So I'm saying that it's like this character's emotions, they're both positive and negative, because if you have a look at the quote itself, it says kissing him, but with many fears, right? So you have the positive loving aspect and you have the negative aspect of fears. It's a conflict. Okay. All stories are about conflict. Okay. So one thing that the student has done here is they've used juxtaposing, right? So this is undoubtedly strong as the juxtaposing highlight. So we can say here, for example, juxtaposition, right? That's the technique that the student has decided to use. Cool. Right. So we've got juxtaposition. So I would say that the topic sentence is not quite strong enough. Not too bad, but not so 100% convincing. And then they have got the technique there. Okay, cool. We'll go into that, right? They have got evidence. But if we have a look, there is no close analysis. See? So somebody just asked, where did they lose marks? So if you have a look, no close analysis of the author's techniques, right? So what we need to do is we need to take this quote and just break it down into individual parts and start talking about what they mean or suggest or imply. So there's nothing there. Now, the thing is, obviously, I'm going to try and analyze it against that. Kissing him lovingly. Okay, cool. Right, let's have a look. What we can do is we can analyze lovingly, okay, and with many fears, right? And we can just talk about fears there, right? Cool. Now, the next place that has lost marks here, if you have a look, right? So we haven't got close analysis, so we haven't gained any marks there. And then if you have a look here, this is successful for the reader to get a peek into the changing emotions of the narrator. Now, the student has spoken about the reader here, but who can tell me the but? What's the but? Okay, look, guys, when it comes to discourse markers, yeah, that's my thing. That's my idealistic mind trying to get you guys to make sure your sentences flow nicely. The examiners don't give you marks for discourse markers. The reason why I make you do that is to try to demonstrate to the examiner, give them confidence that your writing is sophisticated. That's why. Not everything that we teach is purely about marks. A lot of it, or some of it, is also about giving the examiner confidence. For example, when you write your essays, and I say to you, put a hook at the beginning, there's no requirement to write a hook. There's absolutely zero requirement to write a hook. The reason why I make you do that is to make your essay stand out and pique the examiner's interest, because it's a very boring process marking. That's why, right? So discourse markers are things like therefore, consequently, however, etc., etc. They are very important in writing, but there's no technical marks for them, right? Yeah, it's a lack of detail, exactly, Haram. It's a lack of detail and depth, right? To just say, to get a peek, it's not quite enough, unfortunately. It's not quite enough, right? Because it's too easy to say something like that, right? You're never going to get marks for saying easy stuff. You're not going to, because especially if you're aiming for grade 9, you're trying to demonstrate that you're pretty advanced, right? So what we need to think about here is kissing him lovingly. So yeah, what effects you guys reckon it could have on the reader there? Because it's saying, I don't even know what's happening in the story. The image that I have in my head is it's almost as like she's saying goodbye to him, like he's going to war or something. I don't know, or he's going somewhere that's dangerous, or he's not going to come back, or something like that, right? What effect does it have on the reader? Because one issue here could be, but it could just be the fact that I don't know what's happening in the story. But one effect, yeah, it could be anxiousness for sure, worry, yeah, scared, exactly, yeah. Anything else? Because remember, how many sentences I ask you to write about author's effects? 2 sentences, right? So that was another area that this particular paragraph lost marks in. The thing is, I'm saying you don't actually lose marks. It's just that you don't gain them. That's all, right? So if you don't put the things that they want, they just can't award you the marks. They're not going to deduct anything from you, but they won't give you the thing that you want if you don't demonstrate the level, right? So the last thing here is actually the author's purpose, right? Very difficult for me to say what the author's purpose might be, but we're going to have to try and do something. So let me just put here quickly. Fear, tension. Remember, you can always rely on empathy as well. Okay, cool. What about author's purpose? What do you think it might be here to be relatable? Again, it's too... We need something deeper than that. But thank you for trying. We need something deep about the author's purpose. Also, maybe trying to show how loved ones worry for others, to show the importance of relationships and how that's not bad, actually. Something about relationships. All right. The problem is we don't have the text, so we don't know. Something about relationships. All right, cool. Let's go. Let's try and actually write this paragraph then, okay? This is my advice to you guys. The first paragraph, try and write about the idea. Okay, because you get marks for concepts, especially in your literature, guys. When you're studying a text, really try and think about the concepts. Okay. Anyway, so here, what I'm going to do is, when I write my second sentence, I want you guys to try and practice this. I'm not saying you have to do this, but here's the thing. Now, what we need to do is we need to introduce the technical terms and the evidence, right? Let's do that first. So, and remember, I'm idealistic, so I'm going to say, for example, the author employs. We're not going to say uses. We're going to say the author employs or utilizes, just to up our vocabulary just a little bit. Employs juxtaposition. Okay, so now we've got. Okay, so we've got the technique in there in the line, kissing him lovingly, but with many fears, right? Okay, cool. So now we've introduced our technique and our quote, but there's a problem. What's the problem? Can tell me what the problem is? Am I going to get marks for doing that? Am I going to get marks for doing that? No. Why not? Why? Why am I not going to get marks if I say, here's the technique and here's the quote? Why can't? Yeah, because it's just too basic. It's like, it's not enough yet. So what can I do then to make sure I get marks for this? I need to add something to it so that the exam will go, okay, yeah, give them something for that. I'm not going to do close analysis just yet. We're going to do it, but not just yet. No, we don't. So one thing about analysis, do not describe, guys. Thank you for trying, but don't describe an analysis. You have to keep it on analysis. It has to be about ideas, We will do effects for sure. We have to do that. We have to do close analysis. I've embedded the quotation, so that's not the one either. But I appreciate you guys trying, inshallah. I appreciate you trying. All right, try again. Another one. Purpose. You guys are all on the right track, but I want something a little bit more. Remember, I'm saying to you this, right? You always get marks for being perceptive and detailed. Well, there's always something available. The examiners will award you something for doing that, right? So look, I've given a technique and a quote. So the next thing I need to do is what? Yes, I can be more detailed, or what? You could use two techniques. That's actually a very good idea, Haram. It's actually a very good idea. Yeah, it is actually a very good idea to talk about how two techniques work together. I could do that, but the problem is I don't have the text. I don't actually know. So you are absolutely correct, and I do want you guys to do that, right? You guys are all on the right track. Now I'm going to give an inference, right? So I'm going to give an inference and I'll say which suggests. So for example, the author employs juxtaposition in the line "kissing him lovingly, but with many fears," which suggests a lack of, or which suggests a lack of security, or perhaps a fear that he may not come back, right? I have no idea what it's actually about, but yeah. By the way, Taya, when you're saying linked to real life, right? When you guys are analyzing, you do want to think about real life. The stories are just metaphors for real life, okay? Now, so look, we've done our topic sentence, we've done our technical terms, we've given evidence, right? So the reason why I have to put an inference there, I could give an alternative inference. Absolutely, I could do that for sure. But the reason why I have to add it in there is because anybody can name a technique and anybody can put a quote. Okay, just being able to do those things is not the quality of a grade 9 piece of writing. All right. What we need to do to give it a little bit more depth is make an inference. Okay, because that will help us to hit this, to be perceptive, right? So you always get marks for being perceptive. It's one of the things. No, inference and effects is different. If somebody could explain what we mean by effects, that'd be absolutely fantastic. What do we mean by effects? Yeah. An inference is like, what does this thing suggest or imply? What's the idea behind it, right? The effect is different, and we'll come back to that in a second, right? So next thing I'm going to do now I'm going to go into my close analysis, right? In particular, so now I need to think about what am I actually going to do close analysis on? I could do, you know what I'm going to do? This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go into more depth about the juxtaposition because I do think that is quite interesting. Yes, exactly. The effects is how it makes the reader feel. Right. In particular, the author's decision to juxtapose let's say two contrasting emotions, lovingly and fears. What was the question again? Changing emotions. Good, because so we're on track, right? So to juxtapose two contrasting emotions, loving and fears, is a powerful technique. I'm trying to think of what we would actually say, because we need to go into depth about that. Yeah, we can go with that. It's a powerful technique to explore the irony of relationships. It reminds it's relationships are never smooth, but let's say consist. Sorry, guys, my computer's lagging a bit. Consist of a series of challenges. Okay, I'm doing the best I can with what I've got here, right? So the effects on the reader, consequently, guys, we might finish a couple minutes later if you don't mind, like maybe 5 minutes, right? So consequently, the reader may experience a range of emotions, although it appears that the author is intent on generating a strong sense of empathy for who is it for? What's the name of it's the narrator, right? Empathy for the narrator, because the emotion of, or let's just say the experience of love and fear would likely be common to the reader, a strong method of connecting to the narrator. Right, let's just strong means. Let's say strong means. Okay, cool. So now I want to add one more sentence of the effects. So I'm going to say additionally, right? So Parashai mentioned about discourse markers, right? So this is why I ask you guys to use discourse markers, because if I say additionally, I'm saying to the examiner that I'm going to add one more point here. Okay, watch out, right? So additionally, the narrator's conflicting emotions can also we've already said create, right? So let's say it can elicit a sense of tension. Some of you mentioned that tension in the reader, which can further strengthen the bond between, actually, you know what? The bond between them and the narrator. I think that's a slightly better way, because what a lot of students do is they'll say it makes the reader want to read on, which is true, but it's too basic, right? But if you think about how does the author do that? They do that by strengthening the bond between you and the characters, right? As a result, author may have intended for the reader, may have intended for the reader to consider the value of their relationships despite the challenges or face. I don't know. It's a bit rough because obviously we don't have the text. But anyway, let's just read through it, right? One of the techniques Bowden seems to utilize in this part of the text is to explore the conflicting emotions of the narrator, thus exposing the tension between both positivity and negativity. For example, the author employs juxtaposition in the line kissing him lovingly, but with many fears, which suggests a lack of security or perhaps a fear that he may not come back. In particular, the author's decision to juxtapose two contrasting emotions, lovingly and fears, is a powerful technique. I have a feeling that there should be a comma here as well. Sorry, my punctuation is not the best, guys. Sorry. Is a powerful technique to explore the irony of relationships. It suggests that relationships are never smooth, but consist of a series of challenges. Consequently, the reader may experience a range of emotions, although it appears that the author is intent on generating a strong sense of empathy for the narrator, because the experience of love and fear would likely be common to the reader and a strong means of connecting to the narrator. Additionally, the narrator's conflicting emotions can also elicit a sense of tension in the reader, which can strengthen the bond between them and the narrator. As a result, the author may have intended for the reader to consider the value of their relationships, despite the challenges we all face. Let's just check here. Yeah, because look, are we exploring the narrator's changing emotions? Yes or no? Are we not doing that? Yeah, we are doing that. And we're evaluating. That's why I was saying, like, there's no difference, guys, between and I'll give you this now, right? But that's why I'm saying there's no difference between this and just like evaluation and analysis. Like, it's literally the same, right? So anyway, there is a paragraph for you guys. Please, guys, study it. I just want you guys to just try, and I basically just want you to copy what I'm doing. Yeah, just copy what I'm doing, and that will basically secure you guys at least a grade 7. At least a grade 7, okay? If you're desperate to go, you can go just quick, but I just want to give a quick reminder, guys. So when you go on to, just basically, when you use this tool to assess your writing, right? You go through the entire process until you've got all your feedback for all your questions, right? And remember that in your workbooks, there is a section for feedback. Copy and paste the feedback into that, right? I'll upload the recording tomorrow. You'll get a notification, inshallah, okay? Yeah, so just copy. So my advice to you guys is, like, this is what I do, yeah? I've got, like, so much information. Anytime I find anything interesting, I save it somewhere. So same thing with you guys. Make sure, even if, like, at the end, it'll tell you to copy and paste your feedback. But let's say it's telling you stuff and you see things that are interesting. You're like, oh, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. You can copy it into your notes or into your workbook, right? Just copy it into your workbook, maybe in the feedback section or at the back. I think there's a note section in your workbook or something like that. You know, whatever, right? Last thing as well is that I did test... Yeah, the note, this is new. It's actually old. I just turned it off, but I just turned it back on, right? Anyway, last thing is that I have tested the assessment tools. It seemed to be working well, but it is very complex. If you guys do see anything that looks a little bit off, please send me a message in Telegram. I'll probably have to make like some type of form or something where you can register bugs and stuff. I hope you guys will find it very smooth. I worked a lot on it. Okay. So I'm sorry that the videos are slightly out of sync, but I promise you I will get them there. Inshallah. It's just that this stuff has been like super challenging. Inshallah. Okay. Any questions? If you need to go, you can go, guys. If you need to go, you can go. Any questions before we wrap up? Anything at all? Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Aisha. All right, guys. I sent you the model answer. Just click on it. Just study it. And that, if you guys can just do that type of paragraph, yeah, just do that one type of paragraph, that's enough for you to score at least a grade 7, minimum grade 7 for everything, for language, literature, everything, inshallah. Another quote to super. Well, you don't need to. You can add another quote if you want to.